Την επόμενη εβδομάδα μια πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα συνέντευξη του κυρίου Άκη Χρυσαφίδη για το φορολογικό θέμα του Δήμου με τον πρώην Υπουργό και Δήμαρχο κύριο Choquette. Μην την χάσετε.
Αγαπητοί φίλοι, γεια σας. Στη σημερινή μας εκπομπή θα διακόψουμε για σήμερα μονάχα το μεταναστευτικό μας θέμα για να ασχοληθούμε με ένα θέμα το οποίο είναι φλέγον και αρκετά σημαντικό για πολλούς συμπάρικους και για μια μεγάλη μερίδα από τους Μοντρεαλίτες. Πρόκειται για τον πρόσθετο φόρο που αποφάσισε να επιβάλλει η διοίκηση της πολιτείας του Μοντρεάλ στους ιδιοκτήτες ακινήτων, το λεγόμενο surtax. Και αυτός ο φόρος, όπως πολλοί από σας γνωρίζετε, είναι ενισχύ από την 1η Ιανουαρίου 1993. Στην απόψινή μας εκπομπή φιλοξενούμε τον γνωστό δικηγόρο κύριο Choquette, ο οποίος, όπως πολλοί γνωρίζετε, διετέλεσε Υπουργός Δικαιοσύνης του Quebec και Δήμαρχος του Τρεμόν για πολλά χρόνια και ο οποίος αντιπροσωπεύει μία ομάδα από ιδιοκτήτες οι οποίοι έχουν αποφασίσει να πολεμήσουν αυτόν τον καινούριο νόμο με ό,τι μέσο έχουν στη διάθεσή τους. Θα ήθελα να θέσω υπόψη σας ότι ήδη έχει γίνει μια μεγάλη διαδήλωση την 1η Μαρτίου του 1993, την 1η Μαρτίου που μας πέρασε, στο Δημαρχείο του Μοντρεάλ και η διαδήλωση αυτή είχε αρκετά μεγάλη επιτυχία με βάση τους αριθμούς των διαδηλωτών. Σήμερα λοιπόν θα μιλήσουμε για τους λόγους αυτής της αντίδρασης που προκλήθηκε στο κοινό, καθώς και για το τι είναι αυτός ο καινούριος νόμος και τι επιπτώσεις έχει στους Μοντρεαλίτες και πιο συγκεκριμένα στους ιδιοκτήτες ακινήτων. Mr. Choquette, good evening and welcome to our program. Mr. Choquette, je vous souhaite du bienvenue et je vous remercie pour avoir assisté à notre programme de ce soir.
It's a great pleasure being with you.
On Monday, March 1st, 1993, an impressive number of people demonstrated outside the Montreal City Hall their opposition to the new municipal tax. Now, can you tell us what is this tax?
Well, it's a new system of taxation that has been introduced in the city of Montreal in particular, but also in other cities following the adoption of a new law in Quebec called la loi sur la fiscalité municipale. And the essence of the new tax is that it abolishes the old business tax that used to be paid by the occupiers of commercial premises or professional people or industrial people. And it imposes the substitute tax, which is called the surtax, on the owner of the property. So from the new legislation and new regulations of the City of Montreal, the owner of real estate is obliged to pay the general real estate tax, which is $1.78, as it has been set down this year, plus a surtax of $2.06, plus a water and services tax of $1, making a total of $4.84 that is addressed to the owner of the property. Now, he is invited by the law and the way that the whole context is framed to shift the burden of at least a part of that on the tenants or the occupiers. For example, he is entitled by law to either reopen a lease or to use the clauses in the lease which says that there are escalator clauses according to the increases in taxes. But if there is no such clause, then he can just go and say to his tenant, you have to pay me the surtax of $2.06 and you have to pay me the water tax of $1. Now, it makes it a very, very heavy burden on the owner at this point to be like the collector of taxes on behalf of the city. And also to be in a position where he exacts, where he is the one who imposes the taxes on his tenants. And everybody knows that in the period of recession in which we're living today, where business is awfully slow in most areas, that the poor tenant to have to support an additional tax on top of the TVQ or the TPS and the GST and all these taxes that the federal and the provincial government have put on us, he has to support now the 206 tax, the surtax, and he has to support the $1 water tax. So naturally, the tenants are panicky, and a lot of them are going to be put out of business. A lot of them also will go to other cities where they didn't impose such a heavy tax, and they'll look for areas where, you know, you don't have to face such problems. And in my estimation, the great danger of this new tax system is that the tax load is so heavy, both on the owner of property, and when we talk about owner of property, we're not just talking about large owners of property, we're talking about people, you know, who have put a little bit of savings aside and accumulated a little building, and they have a store that they rent out, and maybe they occupy the apartment on the second or the third floor. So they're not necessarily wealthy people. They just try to, you know, take insurance for their old days and make themselves a little retirement fund, a little income. So these people have to support this very, very heavy tax, and the tenants will have a tendency to leave. And a further aspect of this new taxation system is that the owner is obliged to pay the tax even if he doesn't have a tenant. This is really the end. This is really the extreme aspect of this regulation, is that you pay a tax not only where you have a tenant, but you pay a tax when you don't have a tenant. The city, on the other hand, says, I'll reimburse you 1 year from now for your vacancy, if that vacancy has been for more than 60 days. But nevertheless, you have to finance that tax during the whole year. You know as well as I do that banks these days are very tight on credit, that people also have a lot of obligations that don't permit them to go and borrow to banks for a lot of them. So, and you would have to borrow that money to pay the taxes to the city, and you don't get any financing advantages from the city.
On the other hand, I suppose the city will be keeping this money in trust and benefiting from the interest.
Naturally. The city will get the benefit of that money for at least 1 year, and it will only give back to the owner, if provided that there's been a vacancy, let's say a total vacancy throughout the year of about 80 or 83% of the total time that the place has been vacant. So the city will appropriate 17% that the owner will have to pay out of his own pocket. Now, this tax system, I don't think exists anywhere in the world. I would like to know if this tax, a system like this has ever been implemented elsewhere. I doubt it has. I think that it's an invention that was brought forward in order to permit the cities to collect in an easier way their taxes. But at the same time, it's create a terrible oppression, a terrible injustice on the small property owners and the small merchants and the little industrialists and the little people who have offices and so on. And in my opinion, the great danger is not only the hardship that is going to play on people individually. I think that it will sterilize, paralyze the whole economy of the island of Montreal and of the city of Montreal, and it will give such an image of Montreal and even the province of Quebec that any investors who might be interested in investing in our city or on our island will flee from here, because they will say we cannot invest in real estate where the real estate owner is treated in this way and where such a grave injustice takes place. Okay.
I would like to underline this point, because obviously the motives of the City of Montreal for implementing this new taxation system were to increase the revenues and thereby increase the services and the availability of services to the city.
Yeah, you're right that they might have those motives which are per se legitimate, but here's what they're doing in effect. They're taxing everybody who is really an agent of the economy, everybody who is active economically, like the little building owner and the little merchant and so on. And they're shifting the whole tax burden on that class of people, and they're trying to leave the residential alone, because they're playing this in a demagogic way. They are looking for votes. They want the votes, and therefore they say, what do we lose by oppressing the minority? But I think that the public in general should not feel comforted by this. I don't think that people who are unfair by nature, that they're unjust, and they want to see little merchants and little building owners treated this way. Because if the economy is destroyed, who's going to provide the jobs later?
Right. That's right.
Who is going to be active economically?
The people who demonstrated last Monday against this new legislation showed their opposition, their frustration. They did it in various ways. They threw their keys at the doorstep of the city hall and so on. The reaction of Mayor Doré was cold, to say the least. He mentioned that in the press he would not take any steps, he did not intend to take any steps to modify this law for the moment. Now, what, according to your opinion, being a lawyer, might be a possible legal recourse that those individuals can take against this law?
Right now, in my office, we are preparing a legal recourse to quash, to annul, to have this surtax and this water tax canceled. We intend to proceed before the Superior Court very soon. Well, if some people wish to give us their support in this effort, which is in the interest of the general community, which is in the interest of justice, well, all they have to do is communicate with me in my office.
That's right.
I'm in the phone book, I'm not far. But what we want to do is set up a committee that will help us to handle, you know, the weight and the burden of this lawsuit. It is an important lawsuit. I think that we have chances of success. Anyway, the courts will tell us, but for the time being, as a lawyer, I think we have good chances. But on another aspect, Mr. Christophides, I would like to mention that Mr. Doré is not the only person responsible for this situation, because I agree that he is the one who is committing the crime. But who made the weapon? Who manufactured this law? Who gave him the tools to do this? Unfortunately, it's our provincial government.
Provincial level.
Yeah, I don't understand how those people think. I myself went to Quebec City and I told the Parliamentary Commission when they were studying this law, this is going to be the Tower of Babel. How do you say this in Greek?
O Pyrgos tis Babel.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel. This law is absolutely not understandable by the common individual. These are laws that are made just for bureaucrats, technocrats, lawyers, people who can pass days and days, analyze things. The ordinary citizen is beyond him. Now, when a society arrives at this stage, there is something sick in it. There is something unhealthy in it. And I myself apprehend the most serious consequences for the general welfare of our people if this continues, and if this law stands, and if the heavy taxation that we know today with the GTS and the TVQ and all these taxes and the income tax and so on, if the taxation system continues the same way, I apprehend that the pleasure of living here will be completely disappear, and people will live in insecurity and in a panic-stricken situation. So I take this tax as being more than just a question of money. It's a question of living as a free human being in a society that we wanted free, but now is being destroyed by the heaviness of government, which is weighing on each and every citizen.
That's right. Well, the victims of this legislation are the citizens of Montreal, and more particularly, more directly, so to speak, the owners of immovables. Now, everyone would like to know at this point who to point the finger at. And in my research into tonight's topic, I got in contact with the representatives of the City of Montreal regional office in the Saint-Denis area, who told me that they did acknowledge that there was a great deal of prejudice that befell Montrealers because of this law, but that the fault for this decision was not to be found at the municipal level, it was rather to be found at the provincial level, and in particular Bill 145.
Yeah, est-ce que je peux parler un peu en français? J'ai donné une traduction anglaise après. Certainement que la Ville de Montréal essaie de se décharger de sa responsabilité en envoyant toute la responsabilité sur M. Ryan, le ministère des Affaires municipales et le gouvernement du Québec, en disant nous ne sommes pas responsables. Mais la Ville de Montréal devait se servir de son jugement au moment d'appliquer la méthode de taxation qui se trouvait dans la loi sur la fiscalité municipale. Rien n'empêchait M. Doré de dire on ne peut pas commettre d'injustice, on n'a pas le droit de commettre une injustice, même si on nous donne le pouvoir de le faire. Mais par contre, je trouve que le gouvernement provincial est également responsable pour avoir créé toutes les conditions à l'utilisation démagogique de ces pouvoirs-là et avoir permis que certaines administrations municipales, pour des motifs politiques, eh bien, oppriment une catégorie particulière de la population. Et je m'étonne qu'à Québec, on ne se soit pas rendu compte qu'on était en train de faire cela et qu'on était en train de créer toutes les conditions voulues pour arriver à ce chaos fiscal. I want to repeat in English that Mr. Doré is certainly responsible because he should have used his judgment. He should have said, we cannot oppress one category of taxpayers. We have to be fair for everyone. Last year, mind you, there was a little higher tax on properties, and nobody really cried because we didn't, you know, we said, well, okay, we'll accept it. But when the tax burden becomes 2 or 3 times higher for the commercial building or for the non-residential building, at that point it hits you like a train when you're on the track and that thing is arriving at you and you feel like you're going to be put in bankruptcy. I know that as far as I'm concerned, everybody knows I have an office on Park Avenue, and my taxes went up double.
Is that right?
Double, from $20,000 to $40,000. Now how am I going to pay that? And you know, in my building, you know, the vacancies are there.
Like in many commercial buildings.
So Mr. Doré can try to shift the responsibility to Mr. Ryan, but he is responsible. But Mr. Ryan and the Municipal Affairs Minister are also responsible because they should have known to what use the laws or the powers they were giving to the municipalities could be used in such a negative way. And if they didn't know, then I think that they didn't exercise proper political judgment. And if they feel that an injustice has been done, they should roll it back. They should intervene at this stage. They should say, as a government, we cannot accept that the powers we gave to the municipalities be used to such a detrimental way to a substantial part of the population.
Well, let us hope that the expressions of opposition to this legislation will ring a bell in the ears of the provincial officials and mainly the municipal officials, because they are the ones who implement this legislation. And if that doesn't work, perhaps some legal action might do the trick. Mm-hmm. Be it as it may, I would like to ask you a question at a different, perhaps more personal level. Oh. Your implication in this contentious issue has brought about some rumors concerning your possible intentions to return to active political life, either as a member of the federal government, member of parliament for the federal government in the riding of Outremont, or perhaps as a candidate for the mayoralty of Montreal. Now, could you tell us to what extent that might be true? Or?
Well, I cannot deny a certain interest in either one of those careers. But at the same time, it wasn't that I was looking for initially. It's when I saw this tax bill fall on our heads, and when I saw the havoc and the injustice that it was spraying around, that I felt impelled, because of my position in the community, to really express my ideas and to show to what extent it was unfair and to show how it is illegal and unconstitutional.
Right.
But and also, I feel that our country is on the verge of virtual bankruptcy. I feel that with all these debts, the deficit, the national debt, and the way it's weighing on each one of our citizens, that those who have a minimum of experience have to get up and say, I'm ready to do something about it. And that's the only thing I said. I said, I don't want to necessarily impose myself. I'm not running for a job, really. I don't want to go, you know, like asking for, you know, with cap in hand for a job. It's just because I feel that people at this point have to do something in favor of Canada. And the situation is much more serious than some people think. And this tax permits us to apprehend to what point the situation has become serious.
Well, sir, we wish you all the best in your endeavors. And we thank you very much for being here with us tonight. Your presence is always a pleasure.
Ça me fait plaisir. Merci.
Φίλοι μας, εδώ θα τελειώσουμε την απόψινή μας εκπομπή. Αν έχετε ερωτήματα σχετικά με το περιεχόμενο της εκπομπής αυτής, μπορείτε να μας τηλεφωνήσετε στο τηλέφωνο του σταθμού ή ακόμα να μας γράψετε στη διεύθυνση του σταθμού μας, της ελληνικής τηλεόρασης, με τα ερωτήματα αυτά και θα είναι ευχαρίστησή μας να απαντήσουμε. Την ερχόμενη εβδομάδα θα συνεχίσουμε με το επόμενο θέμα στη σειρά του μεταναστευτικού δικαίου. Μέχρι τότε, γεια σας.